These are XY Studio's newest switches, the Hutt switches. Pink and almost crystal-like, these switches hold a really unique design factor that both renews and revitalizes old and new techniques used on both new and even old switches. Not only does the design of the Hutts feel really mysterious and enchanting, but later on in this video, you'll witness some very interesting design choices. So now, let's get started with the specs. These are nice tactile switches with a pre-travel of 2mm and a total travel of 3mm. The Hutt switches actually use completely different materials for their stem, top, and bottom housings. For the stem, we have POC. For the top housing, we have a modified polycarbonate blend, and for our bottom housing, we have a modified PA12 blend. POC is something we're starting to see a little bit more being used within switches nowadays, and it's all for the right reasons. POC is a super soft and smooth material, so by using it for our stem, we get a super smooth experience while typing with a minimal scratch. Now, our leaf spring is actually something really interesting. It's actually the same leaf spring from the original Invyr Panda switches, just with some slight tuning done. Originally, the Hutts were supposed to utilize a nylon top housing to have a more clacky sound signature, but that was soon scrapped from the planning due to some issues that occurred. So they ended up coming up with the plan to use a modified polycarbonate material to keep that same clacky sound signature while fixing those other problems. Now the spring is another part that is super interesting. This spring is a 20.5mm single stage extended spring, plated with palladium. And what they did here was actually have it to be incredibly light while retaining the tactility of the spring. Just like the top housing though, they originally planned on using an 18mm spring instead, but after some issues with the sound and feel, they decided to innovate and create these new springs. Now, the Hutts will set you back around 55 cents per switch, so they are a bit on the more expensive side, coming in at $5.50 per pack of 10, but you do get Beaston's latest factory looping done on these, and based on how well the X switches and Anya switches were, you're getting a really premium service done for these as well. Also, we are partnering with Unikeys to do a giveaway of 200 Keys BCP switches. There will be 2 winners, so each one can get 100 switches each. Unlike the factory looped ones, these are all going to be professionally hand looped, so they feel both amazing and super high quality. To enter the giveaway, check out our Instagram post and follow the instructions on the description. The last day to enter the giveaway will be on Wednesday, October 11th, up until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, to get an understanding of how these feel and sound, we'll be using 2 completely different sound tests. First up, we'll be using Joint 65 with plate foam, and second, we'll be using Loki 65 with no foam. poppy, clacky, and self-contained. These huts sound way too good. Bsun already has a really good track record of making their switches sound way too good in any board, and this is just another example. With or without foam, I think these switches can be placed in any config you desire. Since these are already factory lubed and use the epoxy material, scratch within the switch is almost non-existent. All you hear is the smooth clackiness nature of the huts. Now, feeling these around, I was super surprised. I thought that there would be a bit more pre-travel before hitting the bump, but you're immediately introduced to it and actually don't really notice it's there. At first, I thought I was getting tricked by the creators of the switch, but the more I looked into it, the more intrigued I got. For some reason, if you're a relatively fast typer, these switches start to feel more like a more responsive linear switch. I think the combination of the specialized lube and the switch materials made it so that these switches were insanely smooth to the point where you weren't even noticing the bump even existed, depending on how fast you actually typed. Now, don't get me wrong, in an amazing way, these switches feel so different and unique, and I'd place these on a whole different level of switches. And personally, as someone who likes a bit of both worlds with switches, I love this combination. The inspiration for the design is just simply stunning. So despite what you're thinking, these switches were actually inspired to reflect the beauty of the Hutt Lagoon in Western Australia. This magical place is a massive salt lake that has a very beautiful pink hue to it that really makes you feel like you're in a different universe that shouldn't exist. Our top housing is supposed to reflect the salty aspect of the lake, and our bottom housing is supposed to reflect the beautiful pink nature of the lake. This place is truly one of the best wonders of the world. Overall, these switches can speak to any user in this hobby. If you're a tactile user or a linear user, I really feel like the Hutt can merge both of these worlds together and just help people who are looking for something different in the hobby. The truth is, finding unique switches like these are getting harder to come by nowadays. So, seeing the Hutts in person and up close gave me more hope for this hobby's uniqueness.